Welcome to the school of sexuality. Let's talk about our values, gender equality. Everyone has a body, but no two are the same. Respect, consent, my body is my body. Respect, consent, your body is your body. This is the school of sexuality.
Oh, how do I look? Oh, hi. Identity. We've talked about identity before. It's who you are, the way that you think of yourself, the way that you are viewed by the world, and the characteristics that define you. Aspects of your identity are things like race, your career, your age, your birth order, your economic stance, education, culture, religion, the language you speak, where you grew up, how your body looks, like skin tone, height, disability, or if you fit in with narrow beauty standards. So many possibilities can contribute to identity. One single part of your identity does not define you. Although overlapping identities as a whole combine to make up a large part of who you are.
In breaking news! New research shows that almost anything can affect your personal identity. The things that affect your identity could be something you have absolutely no control over, like where you were born or the color of your skin, while other things, like choices you make in your life or how you spend your time, just may have equal influence over how you see yourself. We have Bridget on the ground, speaking with people about their identity. Over to you, Bridget.
Thanks, Alex. I'm here on the ground speaking to people about their identity. We actually got a phone call from someone super special. Let's go ahead and listen to that clip. All right, I am here with Lexi West. Lexi, I have a few questions for you about your identity. Can you tell me in three sentences, who are you?
I consider myself to be a lesbian who identifies as female, so she, her pronouns. I'm also half Filipino, half white. And yeah, I don't know. What other details do you want to know, I guess?
So, no, that is perfect. I just want to know, what is it that you feel when you say, who's Lexi West, all the things that come to mind? Are there any part of your identity, such as your age, your ethnicity, your career, your abilities, your body abilities, that you feel have a major impact on you in your life?
100%. I do. And I don't think that I would ever consider just one of the things as my one identity. I think it's kind of an all-encompassing thing for me. And even just the description of myself, I said I'm half white, half Filipino. Just ethnicity-wise, I would never feel comfortable just leaving out one whole part, because you're talking about one whole part of me. If you're leaving one of them out. Right now, I am a member of the U.S. Air Force, and I also think that's a big part of my identity as well, although I am transitioning out of the military. But I think I will always have, the military and kind of veteran part of my identity as well. And then, being a member of the LGBT community is also a huge one. So all those things together, I think, make Lexi West.
Awesome. Now, have any of these parts of your identities made life a little bit more difficult or in any situation?
I think so. I think, being brought up during a time where it wasn't as normal to be LGBT was a little bit hard, like having other kids maybe recognize that I was different and I hadn't had that self-discovery yet, was hard to manage. And of course, like it wasn't as common for there to be a lot of out at school. And also serving in the military, although I did join at a time when it was okay. My first introduction to the military, I was a significant other and a spouse to a service member when it wasn't necessarily legal. So there were a lot of things that we had to navigate as a couple. We couldn't go to certain countries as a married couple. And actually, when we were dating, it wasn't federally legal in all states. So all those things made things a little bit harder to navigate.
Definitely. Do you feel like any of your parts of identity have made any situations a little bit easier for you in life? Another way I like to pose this question is, has any part of your identity given you more power than, let's say, someone else in any situation?
Not necessarily, and definitely not career-wise. I only say that because, especially in the military where it is primarily male, to be a female is, strike one. I'm also, ethnically diverse and a member of the LGBT community. So I've got kind of 3 strikes in that regard where there might be something about me that is slightly offensive to somebody else. But on the flip side, I would say all these micro communities of LGBT, Asian Americans, if I get around a group of any one of these, that's when things become a little bit easier. There's kind of this unspoken, family vibe where you don't really need an explanation. There's just this immediate understanding of who you are and struggles you may have gone through. So in that regard, that's where I've kind of found my tribe and my people where things are a little bit easier. So for example, I move around a lot for work. So one of the first things I do is to find an LGBT group in the new place that I'm living at, because then I'll just have that piece of community. And, same when it comes to culture, like you miss those flavors and people from home. And so you're always trying to find others who you can share that with.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Lexi, for taking some time out of your day to talk to us. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I'm here with Stanley. Stanley, tell me in 3 sentences, who are you?
Wow. I am a gender non-conforming male who happens to be of Creole descent. My family is from Louisiana. We are French, indigenous, Atakapa, Indian, and African American. I also identify as a spiritual being in a physical body, overwhelmingly, the older I get.
Definitely. So your spirituality is a huge part of your identity.
My spirituality is inseparable from my identity in this world and in other realms of consciousness. Yes.
Definitely. So you've pointed out a couple of parts of your identity, such as your ethnicity and your spirituality. Would you say that there's any other additional parts that contribute to make up who you are, such as your age or your career or your economic stance?
Yes. I also identify as an artist, a creative being. That creative work, that artistic work has extended into my professional career of teaching theater, different types of theater at different schools. Yeah, I also, yes, this is very, yes. Identity is very strong, and I'm getting a lot of different downloads. But yeah, I think the artistic careers is, yeah, that will suffice.
It's a huge part of who you are, for
Yeah.
sure. So would you say, have any of these individual identities created any situation that might have been difficult or have made things a little bit harder over the course of your life?
Yes, I have certainly experienced racism. I've been bullied in my life based on the way that I looked or appeared, or the way that I didn't identify with, let's say, men. This idea of being an aggressive, macho, domineering, those things, I never identified with those things. They never resonated with me. Yes, racism, being a gender non-conforming biological male. And also, I must say, and you brought this up earlier, and I was debating whether I should pull this out, but I grew up fairly in poverty. You know, I grew up in a very difficult neighborhood in which there was gang violence and a lot of things that forced me to grow up a little quicker than other people.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I love that you brought that up, because a lot of people don't realize that our economic stance definitely affects the way that we were raised, or the neighborhoods that we grow up in, or having access to the same privileges that a lot of people who do not have the same economic stance as we possibly did while we were growing up did. They might have. So staying on that track, do you feel that any of your identities have granted you a little bit more power in any situation of your life?
Yes. Well, I could tell you first off, being an American, being born in America and traveling abroad, you certainly are treated differently based on the fact that you have an American passport and you speak English. Being a male, a biological male in a very male dominating society, whether I like it or not, I have certain privileges based on the way that I appear in the male sense, not so much the ethnic, but there are privileges, of course. And I've certainly struggled to reconcile those things in the course of my life. Yes.
Definitely. Alrighty. So then one more is, do you think that any one of these single identities define you alone, or do you think that they all contribute to make up who you are?
That's a beautiful question. I think they all play a part. I think they all, we have a saying in the southern part of the United States that all churns make the butter. There's no single movement. It's everything I've experienced and everything I have discovered about myself in this society, in this country, through other people, about my identity. It's all played a huge role in my, yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stanley, for taking the time to speak to us. That was wonderful.
Identity is a wild thing, and it changes as we go through life or gain new experiences. All of our identities fit together to create how you experience the world around us. No one experiences the exact thing. Our world is diverse. Diversity means that we all have differences. Sometimes parts of our identity make how we experience life a bit easier or gives us an advantage over others. This is called privilege. Other times, parts of our identity gives us a disadvantage in certain situations. This is why it's important to understand these terms: equity and equality. Even though equity and equality sound similar, the differences between them really matter. Equality is equal to fairness and sameness. It is based on the assumption that we all have the same needs and start off the same. Equality is dividing resources equally, but does not factor differences in need and ability. Everybody is given the exact same quantity of resources. In this image, both boys are given the same size ladder, not factoring in differences of access, leading to one boy not able to access the apples. Equity is not only dividing resources fairly and equally, but also factoring in differences amongst people. Equity is based on advantages and disadvantages. Here you see the boy on the right has a taller ladder because the tree is higher on his side, whereas the other boy has a shorter ladder because he has a shorter distance to reach to gather apples. They have different size ladders to make sure they are both able to pick the apples. Justice is a long-term equity. It looks to create equity in systems as well as individuals. Here you see both boys are given the same size ladder, but instead of giving them different size ladders, they give added support to ensure both are able to access the apples. If we are aware of our privilege, we have the power to make sure that we can create a more equitable world and use that power to fight for justice. It's important to get to know those that are different from you and understand how they experience the world. It's only through understanding and building community that we can make real change.